Hello, everyone, and welcome back to SLAPcast. This is episode 13 of our coverage of the 2023-24 season. I do stress the back element of welcome back, as we've just endured another one of our entirely characteristic periods of radio silence. This one induced by such demons as the international break, American Thanksgiving, and my own bout with bronchitis. Ooh. Of course, I'm your host, Gage, as usual, and today is marked not only by our overall return, but Josh's return to the show as well. So I'm going to start with you, Josh. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I am quite well. Quite happy to have you back on the show. And quite happy to be joined by Ethan, who's here as well. Hello, Ethan.
Oh, hello, Gage. It's good to be back. Thank you for hosting.
And Reese. Reese is here too.
Hey.
Hello, Reese. Josh, since you're back, I would ask very kindly a favor of you that you demonstrate to us how much of amateurs we are at coming up with questions of the day and grace us with the
I've been the only one coming up with them. You bitch.
Grace us
pretty
with
good.
I know they were, but grace us from the source, the fountain of wealth of questions of the day from Josh.
So we're going back to the basics because last time I was on, which was a while ago, we were having some good ones, like not food related ones, like actual, like decent soccer related questions. So we're going to stray so far from that. What's your favorite Thanksgiving food? It's a little late, but we did miss Thanksgiving time for an episode that we were going to do this question. So it doesn't have to, it can be the side, the main dish, unique to what y'all have. But what is it?
I have struggled with Thanksgiving food because for the longest time, I just didn't really like it, to be honest. However, recently, and when I say that, I mean within the past 3 or 4 years, I've discovered that I like dark meat and my family likes white meat. So that was a source of issue for me. So now I'm on the dark meat train. I'm a fan of that. Always a fan of the bread, but that's kind of cheating. I've also become a fan within the past couple of years of deviled eggs. I really like deviled eggs.
I like deviled eggs. They're not like my go-to, but if they're around, I'm gonna like pop one or two in. But also dark meat is superior. That's where all the flavor is.
Yeah,
I go crazy
100%.
over it.
I'll go next. I'm also like Reese, and I've never been the biggest like holiday food. I feel like Thanksgiving and Christmas are kind of similar in a way, or at least for me. But I've also never been a big Thanksgiving food guy. I do like turkey. Macaroni and cheese has never really been like a Thanksgiving thing, but it just somehow is always there. So I like that. Mashed potatoes are good because then you can make like a little turkey and mashed potato sandwich with a little roll. So I guess one of those.
That sounds so good.
I don't know what y'all talking about. I load up my plate every Thanksgiving. I get in there at my grandma's house. I see the dressing. I'm scooping that shit on there. I see the mashed potatoes. I'm scooping that shit on there. I see the turkey. I'm scooping that shit on the plate. Dude, green beans, cranberry sauce, sweet potatoes, what have you, all of it. I'm there for it. I love the holiday food. My absolute number one favorite at this exact moment, after having experienced it once again to confirm my assessments, is my grandma's sweet potato casserole with marshmallows melted on the top, drizzling into the sweet potatoes. It's practically a dessert that's part of the main meal. It's just so sweet, so succulent, so juicy, so all those nice, good adjectives that you can use about food and other things. I
Tell us about your
absolutely
grandma's
love.
dish.
Yeah, I absolutely love a little sweet potato casserole. Good leftover too. I had it many times throughout the week after we were done eating it for lunch on Thanksgiving. So, do you guys do lunch or dinner on Thanksgiving?
Lunch.
Because then you have leftovers.
We do both because we do my parents at like 2 o'clock, and then we do Olivia's parents. We normally eat at like 7. So like it like balances everything out.
It was like we did like a 1 o'clock lunch, but it was a ton of food. So and if you're hungry again, you just heat up some stuff.
Yeah.
So my favorite, I'm also with Gage. Thanksgiving food is amazing. I don't know if it's the fact that like it doesn't really get made most of the year outside of Thanksgiving and some of it on Christmas, but it's so good. I love how the plate's just like yellow, orange, and just like some brown. It's
All
great.
colors.
It's all carbs, all it's great. Um, I think so. My favorite growing up was rolls because like my parents had a bread maker that like kneaded the dough for you. And my mom messed up the recipe one year and put too much butter in it, and she has not been able to recreate the roll recipe. And it lives
You're
in
exposing her right now.
legends. No, the normal rolls are amazing. That year, the rolls were wild. They were the best rolls ever, and it has not been recreated since. But I have to split this up into three. So the rolls, my mom makes these things called pumpkin squares, which it's a layer of like sugar butter graham cracker, a cream cheese and sugar layer, pumpkin, and then Cool Whip on the top. It's basically pumpkin pie, but with sugar and cream cheese. It's amazing. And then third is my wife's mashed potatoes. She says these will probably take a year off of your life because she just adds butter and heavy cream until it tastes right. This year, for 8 potatoes, she added 3 sticks of butter, and they were the best mashed potatoes
Oh
I've ever
my.
had in my life. They were so
Mashed
good.
butter with some potatoes mixed in.
That's what I was saying. Oh my god, they were so good. Oh, they were amazing.
Does anyone have any final thoughts on Thanksgiving food before we press on? No. Okay, good. The mystery segment this week is something slightly not very mysterious because as Euro 2024 has come around, the draw has happened. So we're going to go through each of the groups this week and pick out a team that really tickles our fancy to be favorite in the tournament. No, sorry, favorite in the group and possibly favorite in the tournament to move on. Because obviously if you're favored in the tournament, you would be favorite in your group. So Group A at this time, as we know, is comprised of Germany, Scotland, Hungary, and Switzerland. Now, of course, this is important because Germany are the hosts this year. Last tournament, it was hosted across multiple different nations, of course, in the weird time frame of it being in 21 when it was actually called Euro 2020. And the one before that was in France. So Germany looking for some redemption, I think it's fair to say, in hosting this tournament. And I've got them favorites for this group. I think it's a non-controversial pick. But I think the home field advantage and the general quality that they have over the opposition is probably going to be enough.
Right. I mean, when we had the World Cup in Russia, I mean, no one probably would have thought Russia would have gone as far as they did, but they just did so well because they were obviously his home field. So yeah, I went with Germany, and I also went with Germany just because I'm not too inspired by who else is in the group. I mean, I don't know too much about Hungary, but SpongeBob. That's probably all I know from Hungary, and then the other two are interesting because Scotland are a lot of their older players have moved on, and so is the same with Switzerland, I think.
Josh?
I'm going to be the weirdo here. I think Germany are once again going to dud it in another international tournament.
Wow.
I just don't really have the faith in them. And I'm going to go with Hungary. They've done it before in these kind of competitions. Like every time they make it, they generally shock a little bit. Like they, in Euro 2016, one of like my favorite memories, they went head to head with Portugal and made it out of the group and did very well in the knockout stage, but had a tough loss in the round of 16 before. But it was a magical moment. I think Hungary is going to do surprisingly well in the tournament.
Josh, you're not that weird because I also don't think Germany's going to top the group. Although I don't agree it's Hungary. I'm going Switzerland. I think they're just consistently good in every tournament they're in. And unless I'm mistaken, at the last Euros, they made it to the semifinals, I believe, losing to Spain in a penalty shootout, if my memory is correct. So I think they're going to top the group. I think just across their whole starting 11, I find them a pretty balanced team. And I also think I think Granit Xhaka has had a bit of a renaissance right now and is also tearing it up at Leverkusen. And I think that's going to continue over into the national team.
Okay, Group B, another team that's had some struggles in recent years to regain its previous might, and that being the top seed of this group, which is Spain. However, they're joined by two other major European teams in the form of Croatia, Italy, and then the sort of minnows of the group, if you will, Albania, who did well at the last, or I think in Euro 2016 when they were in, made it out of the group stage by a third place playoff, if I remember correctly. This is a tough one for me to pick, but I think given all things that I know at the moment, I'm gonna go for another safe pick and take Spain. I think I'm not inspired by Italy, even though they are the reigning champions. I think there's too much turmoil, too much loyalty to players who maybe are past their prime, and not enough inspiration for me in terms of the young crowd coming through. So Italy doesn't inspire me. Croatia, I think, is well past it. I think this is the tournament where we're going to see they fully have fallen from where they once were. Obviously, Modric, the star man, is 38, 39 now. He can still do it, but he hasn't been playing for Real Madrid, and I don't expect him to play well necessarily at the Euros, or at least up to the standard that he has been playing. So for me, I'm going to take the safe pick once again and go with Spain.
I'm also going to go with Spain, but that I think it's because you saw how well they did last year, and if they had not met like the magic of the tournament in Morocco, they probably could have pushed to the final, depending on how the subsequent games would have went. I just think they have a bunch of young players. I think last tournament was a major changing of the guard. You didn't see normals like PK, Ramos, and like De Gea in the back. I think you see very much of a changing towards that younger generation of Spanish players. I think it's going to work out very well for them in this tournament.
I actually am going with Italy. I think, Spain will still do really good, and I think the head-to-head versus Italy will be a good game for sure. But I was just really impressed with how Italy played last tournament, I guess, or whatever it was. And I think they'll take kind of that momentum going in that they're or that they won the last one.
I'm also going with Spain. I don't have much to add. I do have a correction. I think I said Switzerland made it to the semis. I think it was the quarters. Not quite the semis, but anyway, yeah, I'm going with Spain. The one thing I did want to mention though is that at the last Euros, I think this was kind of the breakout tournament for Pedri, I believe it was, who I think is like really injured right now, like out for the season. I think maybe I'm making that up. One of the young Spanish midfielders is injured. Which one plays for Barca? I think it's
they both do. Pedri and Gavi, they both do.
It's one of them. One of them's injured. Anyway, I think that is something to note, but I think they also just have a lot of quality, especially in midfield. They just always produce good midfielders, so it's not too much of a worry, I don't think.
Reese, I'm going to stick with you for the opening foray into Group C, which contains such teams of interest to us as England, first of all, followed up by Slovenia, Denmark, and Serbia, which is an interesting group from a lot of standpoints. Reese, as our resident England hater, I'm going to pass it off to you first and see if your hate trend continues.
As much as I hate them, they're going to win this group. I think they may be favorites to win the tournament as well. The team they have amassed and like some of the players they're bringing through even within the last few years with additions like Jude Bellingham and Saka's fully integrated into the side. Who'd you say? Ollie Watkins? Yeah. Watkins now an option. Kane obviously still around. Declan Rice. I mean, look at the midfield. It's absolutely insane. Declan Rice, Jude Bellingham, and then, whoever you want in that third spot, James Maddison, Phil Foden. I mean, there's plenty of high quality options there. So I generally think now I'm still a Maguire hater, and I think he might play. He does play better for England than he does for club, and he's actually been playing okay for United recently. But I don't. I'd be very curious to see who is starting in defense for them. For
General John Stone.
sure. Honestly, I hope it's John Stones. I think he's had a good year, good like last season as well. So yeah, I think England easily, to be honest.
England for sure. I mean, like Reese just said, you've got all these players that are breaking through into the team, like with more of an emphasis on Bellingham and stuff like that. But I think they'll have a decent time against the people around them. I think Denmark will still be a decent team. There's a lot of good players in there, but England have just gotten so much better, and they still keep a lot of the same players who have been in the squad for a long time, but they've introduced these players over the time, and yeah, they're going to be fun to watch.
I have nothing else to add. That is protective.
Yeah, I'm on the same page. I think they got a very favorable group matchup. So if they can gain a lot of momentum through the groups, maybe not waste as much of their collective energy on getting through the group games, they'll actually be able to pull through a knockout stage without everyone getting tired, injured, or otherwise. I think you have players who are setting records at their various clubs and leagues. Harry Kane, Jude Bellingham, as mentioned, even Bukayo Saka, who I don't think we mentioned, who's ripping it up. So yeah, for me, it's England easily. Group D, we only know 3 teams so far. It is a strong group, though, as we know. It's Netherlands, France, Austria, and then one of the playoff winners from the Nations League. So of the Netherlands, France, and Austria, you'd have to say for the group win, it probably comes down between France and the Netherlands. And for me, it's just to the stage where I think Netherlands has a very promising team. We saw some of the elements of that when they knocked the United States out of the World Cup in the round of 16. They have a lot of good prospects coming up. I just don't know that they're quite established enough to take on France, who are reigning consensus, generally best team in the world, I would say. And for that reason, I think Mbappe and France, in spite of maybe them being weakened in areas of defense and midfield, I think they'll still be favorites for this group.
I think so too. I think Netherlands they're good with the Mbappe effect, and Mbappe is just the best of the best from the best team in the world. I think he's just such an X factor. I mean, you saw what he did on the biggest stage in the World Cup final. Was beaten by Messi basically. But yeah, I don't have too much else to add. I just think Mbappe is going to be too good, especially in the group stage, because I just think he's going to run through Austria, and the other 4 teams in the path A of the playoff are not very strong. I think they're going to get a very easy 6 points. And I don't think it will be an easy 6 points against the Netherlands, but I do think they'll beat them as well.
Yeah, also France. Nothing else to add.
Yeah, I do think this will be a fun group because, France and Netherlands, promising young players in both teams. But, with France, you immediately think, they've got their star with Mbappe, not to say that Netherlands don't have a star in Van Dijk, but, he's been playing very in the shadow of his former self this year so far. So maybe he can turn around, but, all eyes on France right now.
Group E might be another simple foregone conclusion for the most part, not to be disrespectful to these other nations, but it's another 3-man group. As of right now, we've got Belgium, Slovakia, Romania, and Mystery. For me, it's Belgium easily. I think Slovakia and Romania just are 2 of the weakest teams in the tournament. Again, no disrespect. They have done really well to get here, but I think on paper, they are 2 of the weakest teams in the tournament. And Belgium, they incessant almost rans, I think, tend to always do well in the group stage and then collapse come time for the knockout stage. Even though I think, didn't they go out in the group stage in the World Cup, now that I say that? But
yeah, because I think
but they kind of imploded. Their squad was fighting.
Yeah. True. So that's an interesting dynamic to look at.
But they also had struggled to bring in younger players into the squad and mesh them in well, which led to De Bruyne going apeshit multiple times in the dressing room and on the pitch. I do think they're going to win the group, but I think it's solely based on the rest of that group is kind of awful. Even the teams in Path B, like Path B is Wales play Finland and Poland play Estonia. So unless Poland make it and Lewandowski has like a world beating tournament, which I think would be not impossible but hard, I think it would easily be Belgium.
I thought Poland were in Group D potentially.
No,
Yeah.
the playoff. Well, nope. Wikipedia messed me up. This one is Bosnia versus Ukraine and Israel versus Iceland. Never mind. That's going to be
Israel versus Ukraine is a possible final there.
so
Winner doesn't get blown up. Okay.
I said Belgium too, and it's just because I know a lot of the Belgian players. I can't really say I know too much about the other two teams, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm also going Belgium. I think they're just a lot better than the other sides. Nothing much to add.
In Group F, which may end up being one of the closer ran groups, all things considered, featuring one of my famous dark horse picks for the last Euros, which is Turkey.
Thanksgiving on the brain.
Turkey, Portugal, yeah, and Czech Republic matching up with playoff winner C, who, just for thoroughness, I will tell you, is one of Georgia, Luxembourg, Greece, or Kazakhstan, which probably means it's going to be Greece.
Wet dream.
Dude, I would go crazy, dude. If Georgia or Kazakhstan made the Euros, I would go absolutely crazy until the group stage is over, and then it would die shortly, and I'd just watch it for fun.
So we'll see who ends up in that group, but I'm gonna pick Portugal.
What was that? What did you say first?
What did you say?
Yeah, Portugal for sure. I mean, Czechia or Czech Republic, whatever. They have got a lot of good players, and so does Turkey. But it's just like different quality with Portugal. So
yeah, I'm also going Portugal. The thing about Portugal too is that I think because of Ronaldo's presence, like that group have the winner mentality. Like even when they're losing, I just feel like when I'm watching Portugal, I'm like, man, these players are like, they act like winners, if that makes sense, So
Do we think
feel
he's
like
for sure gonna go? Do we know for sure he's gonna go?
I don't think it's an issue if he doesn't go. I don't know if he is or not, but he got pulled off the pitch multiple times and didn't even start at least one game in the last World Cup, and they still looked very, very good. And they played a lot of youth players like Rafael Leao being one of the like mainstays of the squad, and then that one striker who was playing for Benfica who had the hat trick
Gonzalo Ramos.
Yeah, Gonzalo Ramos looked amazing. So I think even if Ronaldo doesn't go, I would still be fairly confident in them doing very well in the group.
I think a lot of people are predicting it to be his last international tournament.
I think he'll go. I mean, I think it'd be crazy to not take him, even just for the like, even if he's not playing. Like a lot of these players, especially the Portuguese players, will have like he is their role model, right? Like they're growing up, they're playing soccer, they're watching Cristiano Ronaldo. So now they're stick him in a Euro side. Ronaldo's on the bench watching, and it's almost like oh, my dad's watching, I got to do better, right?
Yeah.
Ronaldo's on the bench, I gotta show out, right? Especially it's kind of the effect with the last World Cup. Like the squad wanted to win it for Messi, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of has that effect too.
And to clarify, like I don't think it would be a Portugal would not select him to go to the Euros. I think it would be him being like, I'm internationally retired. If anything.
Yeah, that's what I was insinuating too. I think they would be stupid not to take him, but if he doesn't want to go, then you can't force him to go. So yeah. Well, that concludes our little mini preview of the Euros. I think we will come back with a more in-depth preview once that tournament actually gets within view. We still have a lot of Premier League left to cover before we get to that tournament, but when that tournament does come around, we will be sure to get across it with all of our full predictions and analysis and whatever else we may be doing at the time. Let's move on to some action from the Premier League. Now, we're going to do a kind of whistle-stop tour across the games because there are some games that we want to look at in depth, some games that have some news items related that we need to discuss, and a couple games that we want to touch on just because they were absolute crackers. So let's get started with one of our more in-depth looks, and that is with Arsenal, who retain their spot at top of the Premier League, taking advantage of an off week for Man City, although I think y'all were top anyway, right, with this win?
Yeah.
Taking advantage of an off week for Man City nonetheless by picking up points again at Wolves, and a performance which I would probably consider comprehensive, all things considered, albeit a late flurry perhaps from Wolves, although I'm not sure how worried you would have been at the time. What is your main takeaway from the game?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, up until the last 10-ish minutes when Wolves got a goal back and got some momentum, I was largely unconcerned about this game. We completely dominated it. It was very kind of training ground-esque, and Ethan was even saying like it kind of lulls you to sleep almost because we take the lead kind of early and then just kind of pass around the other team for the rest of the game.
Well, I mean, I literally watched the Lens game with you, and they scored like 4 in like the first 10 minutes, and I'm like, now I got to sit here for 80 minutes and watch y'all dominate some more. So,
yeah, but yeah, it was largely unconcerning. I mean, we definitely should have put the game to bed. We had a couple of chances, notably the 2 that hit the post from Nketiah, and I think I want to say Trossard had one hit the post. I can't quite remember, to be honest, but Nketiah definitely had one hit the post, which we should have extended the lead and been able to not even worry even after Wolves got a goal back. But it kind of is what it is. It came from an individual error, a turnover from Zinchenko as well. So it's just kind of one of those things. And we held out for the win. So that's all that really matters. A big takeaway for this game, especially after Odegaard's goal, was like, oh man, we look like we're kind of getting to top form right now. I think previously some of this season we've been winning, which is good, but we haven't quite looked like we were fully gelled. I think the recent Lens game in the Champions League was really big, especially because we lost the reverse fixture. And then this Wolves game, we just looked more like our old selves from last year, which I'm really happy about. Very similar record to last year, actually. I believe it was after 14 games now. We were top of the league last year. And now after 14 games, top of the league and top of our Champions League group, which is good because I know a lot of people, including some Arsenal fans, were concerned about how we would cope with being in Champions League as well as trying to contend for the title. So, and obviously, I think we had an easier Champions League group. It was kind of, I joked when it got drawn and I said we had a Europa League group, but I think it's still important to finish top there. The other thing I'll kind of touch on Wolves very briefly. They got absolutely killed in midfield, which isn't that surprising. Obviously, we have Odegaard and Declan Rice in midfield, and then I think Havertz has looked good, although he didn't even start this game. It was Trossard, who I think has also looked good in this role. He did play there a bit in preseason, so it's not something totally new. But I think part of the reason they got overrun in midfield was I think they had 2 players who normally start for them in the midfield, either out due to suspension or injury. So it was kind of a midfield for Wolves that was comprised of players who don't normally play together. So I think that was part of the issue. But yeah, I mean, they didn't really have a chance in this game.
Yeah, Mario Lemina was the number one notable absentee for them who bossed the midfield against Spurs. So, yeah, I'm glad you brought up Trossard at 8 because I wanted to bring that up. I thought that was the first time we'd seen that incarnation this season. I wasn't too sure about that, but possibly...
It is the first in the league. I think he played there once or twice in preseason.
I think for Wolves, this is probably a nothing burger. I think you just kind of move on. They've had a good spell of results. It's the top team in the league. Nothing to worry about.
I will say I found this out recently, and this is very impressive, but it kind of is just like makes you think about it more. Not the exception being the first game of the season, they've scored in every game since then.
Yeah,
Wolves,
which is yeah,
wow.
Every game they've at least gotten a goal other than the first game of the season. So the scoring is there. They just need to find a way to build that midfield up. and that way they don't get run through and then have strong people at the back. So that's just something they need to address.
I was interested by the tactics from our old pal Gary, but he didn't really play normally how teams have been playing against us this year, which is kind of just sit back, soak up pressure, try and counterattack, because that's kind of how you have to play against our high possession system. They did have a back three, which looked like it may have been a back five, but they were really committing those wing backs forward, and just kind of letting the center backs do their thing, which I think was part of the issue, right? I think that definitely helped us get it to the box, and I think you look at the Odegaard goal. I don't know if that happens if you have more players in the box defending, but I think it's a brave choice, and I think it's kind of one of those where you kind of say, I don't think we're going to get points from this game. Let me just see if we can do something that I want to do, type of thing.
It's a safe place to experiment, because if you get destroyed, you just can say, well, it was Arsenal. Won't get them next time. Right? So,
yeah.
Any final thoughts on Arsenal from you, Reese?
Nope. That's all I got.
So now we're going to move along to another game, which I don't think any of us paid especially close attention to, but the reason we're going to address it is because of some news surrounding it, which has broken recently. Now, Ethan pointed this out to us in the group earlier. Sheffield United destroyed by fellow strugglers Burnley 5-0, and it's led to what we believe will be the sacking of Paul Heckingbottom imminently. Now, Ethan, as you were the one to bring it up, I'm going to come to you first. What is your initial gut reaction to this decision by Sheffield United?
It's just one of those things where it's like, you obviously can't sack the whole squad because they're no doubtably a championship level squad. And so they just need to get him out and try something new. They've had him, I think, times that they were in the league before this past one, and they had him in the championship. And so they might, have a good relationship with the team or him and the team. But I just think, you got to try something else, because it's obviously not working. And, going up against your relegation strugglers, Burnley, and letting them score 5 is quite ridiculous. So, yeah, it's something you can't do. And obviously a result like that is going to make that happen. So, and I predicted it. Paul Heckingbottom first to go.
He was the first one gone. I forgot. I thought Iraola was gone, but he's not.
Well, I guess it hadn't been announced yet, but it looks like it. So
I am curious.
Sorry, you go ahead.
This feels like one of the later sackings of first sackings of recent memory, especially because like the top 6 generally have had, one of them in the traditional top 6 has had a very rough first run of games, and like someone pulls the trigger. Yeah, like Chelsea or like y'all a couple of years ago with just like pull the trigger and sack someone, but no one has been objectively, well, I was gonna say no one's been objectively awful, but there have been some teams that have been objectively really awful. But it's
not without reasonability, though. That's the thing.
Yeah. Like no one has, like everything like has made sense so far. Like outside of Everton getting the point deduction, like the bottom 3 kind of made sense. Like none of them really had Premier League ready squads or made the additions ready for the Premier League. And no one has been like completely out of place. I think Chelsea have kind of accepted that, like, oh, we're not going to be great this first season, or they'll do Chelsea things and sack Pochettino in March. Who knows?
Yeah. Wait, real quick before Reese, you bring up your point, we found out that they were also under a transfer embargo.
Oh yeah.
Which I'm like, I don't know how or why they had that. I don't know if it was.
I'm going to try to research it quickly if I can while Reese makes a point, but I don't really understand that either.
Yeah,
because they've signed somebody, didn't they?
Yeah, they signed
Gustavo
Hammer this summer.
Was it? Yeah, you know what? I don't even know.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I think this sacking isn't because they're in last. I think it's purely on the basis that they dropped points to both Luton and Burnley. Because realistically, like, what were they expecting, right? Maybe 19th. Like, it's still relegation in the end, right? But I think dropping points to both Luton, who they probably would have hoped to do better than in the league, and Burnley, I think is is the reason for this, but I just don't know. Like, I'm not that surprised with where Sheffield are. So I am curious, like, I don't really know if anyone could have not gotten sacked, because I don't think I don't think
I think that's
the
a good.
story changes with another manager. I don't know.
I don't think it. Well, I mean, it could. I think that's the whole point of sacking someone with 6 months left in the season is you have someone who, with the relegation battle looking like it's going to be semi close with Everton's deduction, depending on how they do the rest of the season. Like there is still some hope that one of them can claw their way out of the relegation zone, and you have 6 months of the season left. That's still a lot to be played. Still have over half the season, so someone might have some tactical nuance that will be able to take a really awful team and get them out of the relegation zone. Which, if you live this fight a second season, that gives you a decent chunk, gives you a good running in for the next season because somebody's going to come up from the championship. That's probably not that good.
So two things. One, I'll clarify the transfer embargo situation first, and then I'll add my point to what you just said. Apparently, what had happened was they were under a transfer embargo in January, and they wanted to bring players in, and EFL told them no. So they weren't allowed to sign players in January. It was then lifted before they made it up to the Premier League, so they were able to sign people, but apparently they were also in the midst of an ownership change while that was occurring. So the owners who were incumbent didn't want to spend an entirely large amount of money in the summer if they were about to sell. So new ownership was coming in, which the transfer has still, or the takeover has still remained incomplete. So no ownership changes happened at this time. So that's kind of the full story in terms of their transfer embargo versus what's happening now. But my feeling on the management change, and I said this in the group earlier today, was, I mean, it feels like an insurmountable hill, but then you kind of take a look at it, and I've brought this up before on the show and starting to think about maybe what they can do to galvanize themselves going forward. You have a lot of emotionally crushing moments throughout the season. So like the first of which obviously being you're up 1-0 away at Spurs in the 98th minute and find a way to lose the game. And then the next week, immediately after that, you concede 8 goals away at Newcastle. Then a few weeks pass, you don't really get too many results. You pick up a couple points here and there. Now you've got this big game away to Burnley at Turf Moor, which is a tough place to go, but you've got to think that you'd be up for it. You'd be raring and ready to go. Your relegation rivals, you're going to try to get a point out of it, and you get demolished, crushed. I mean, their spirit was crushed from the first minute when Jay Rodriguez scored. So for me, I think it's just a matter of there's been so many mentally damaging moments throughout the season that it would almost be impossible for the manager not to lose the squad. Like, how do you keep someone bought in that situation? And I think maybe in that regard, they have to change the manager because there's no possible way that Heckingbottom could get them to buy back in, given all the things that have happened so far this season. Even though the results in isolation, if you look at them one by one, they're not the most unexpected or out of the blue results. It's just the combination of this emotional distress on the team that leads to what I think is probably the right decision. I mean, it's a tough look to lose 5-0 to the direct relegation rival, as Ethan points out earlier. So also a rough look for Oliver McBurney, who earns his second red card of the season on only match week 14 and has only scored 1 penalty so far. So not the impact he's been looking for. They may maybe need to seek a striker or some goal scoring in January. So I would ask who they're going to bring in, but honestly, I don't know who's available and I don't know who is in their purview, to be completely honest. So we'll just have to wait and see who they decide to hire. Let's touch on another game quickly. One that I think brings a smile to all of our faces, and that is the affair at St. James's Park, especially Reese's. As you notice, he smiled before I even said it. Man United once again coming up short with a loss to Newcastle. We're speaking about managers and their future outlooks. What is the outlook for Ten Hag at this exact moment, Reese?
So the thing about it is they just had a run of, we've talked about it like last year when Man United always just has a random run of games against like the universe where they win 1-0 over and over again. And that kind of just happened. So like they're not actually like in the league. I think they're in 7th or 8th, something like that.
They're in 6th right now.
Oh my God. They're even
Or no,
higher than I
7th.
thought they were.
7th,
Okay.
sorry.
I
I saw the 2 Uniteds and my brain was like,
Yeah, they're in 7th right now. But it's like, man, I think the games they win are not from the manager. Like, I don't think he is offering anything tactically. So if I was the owner, which I'm not, and it's probably for a good reason, and maybe I'm completely wrong, but I don't think they should be sticking with Ten Hag because he has had enough time now to implement his ideas and certainly more than enough money. And I know they have injuries and whatever. I don't care. They do not look like they have a tactical identity. It's concerning when your best player has been implemented in the side as of like 1 game ago and is 18 or however old Mainu is. I don't remember how old he is.
Yeah.
I mean, their midfield just looks terrible. I think McTominay in this midfield trio is just like, why is he there? Like, what is his purpose?
To score goals.
Yeah, which is
Yeah.
crazy. It's funny because he does get goals, but like, what else does he offer? And I
He's
know
a pylon.
goals are good, but that is not what they need in their midfield. Like, he just kind of exists and takes up space. And I mean, they're still starting Maguire. I don't know if he started, but I think Evans played.
This game, it was Maguire and then 3 wing backs surrounding him. When they have Varane on the bench, I don't care if he just got injured. You got to be playing him
and
over
Lindelof.
Yeah, like
I mean, 1-0 doesn't look as bad, but if Newcastle could have finished, I mean, they hit the post multiple times. They missed it by millimeters multiple times. It could have been like 1,000,000 to
it's just you have to. It doesn't
A
matter.
million to nothing.
It could have been.
Wow.
I saw
just
this thing.
for it.
Newcastle are linked to De Gea now. Now that
I saw that.
Nick Pope is hurt, I saw this thing that said they play on April 24th, and David De Gea is going to have like a magical clean sheet. Then that game is going to keep United from getting in the Champions League, and I think that would be the funniest thing to ever happen.
They're finally going to get De Gea by De Gea.
Yeah.
Everything they do is hilarious to me, and it makes me like I'm not even surprised anymore. Like literally, Garnacho scores this bike, which is probably going to win goal of the year, and then they immediately get a draw in the Champions League against Galatasaray after being up 3-1. Ten Hag coming back with a hair transplant from Turkey. Have you seen those pictures of him with hair?
Yes.
But like, and then has nothing related to the game, but there was like a TikTok, and it was this it was some other team's fan and then a United fan, and it was a squad builder between Newcastle and United, and the dude sat there and it was like Nick Pope or Onana, and the guy was like Nick Pope, and then the United fan was like, I think I'm going Onana, and I'm like, you're not serious right now. This man has had so many mistakes this season. You're picking him over Nick Pope. Delusional.
Yeah. Speaking of Champions League too, kind of going back a bit, they're potentially going to get their last in their group. They're going to get last.
They could still finish second in the group, to be fair, but they might get last.
They're not gonna.
I think it's really funny that they got 1 point from 2 games with Galatasaray, whose squad, I saw the thing that said their squad sounds like,
oh my God,
everybody just sat around and just like named players. So there's like Zaha, Icardi, there's multiple others that I just can't think of, but the squad.
Like Double.
Yes.
Yeah. If I was like upsettingly addicted to gambling, like concerningly addicted, I would bet everything on United getting last in the group.
I didn't realize. So I knew that they had one more game left, and I knew that it was close. I didn't realize that they've already played Galatasaray in Copenhagen twice. They have to play Bayern.
Yeah.
That's crazy. They're gonna get last. They're gonna get last.
I can
So-
drive down to Florida and place all of our monies equally, and then we'll just split it up.
No. The literally in the pregame to that Galatasaray and United game, there's like video footage of Zaha pulling up to the game with a Fanta and a kebab, and he's just like so unconcerned with this game because it's United.
Turkey is a made up place, bro. I don't know what goes on there, but there's nothing real that
I love
happens
it.
there. I know
love it.
one of my best friends lived there for 4 years, and I think he's making it up. I don't think he's telling the truth.
I love it.
I'm convinced Onana has a twin brother as well. One of them plays in the Prem, the other one plays in Champions League because he has technically, like on the stat that's like prevented goals, Onana's top in the Premier League, but he has conceded the most goals out of any keeper in the Champions League.
It's like the sick joke he has with this so-called twin brother that they're like, who's gonna start today?
Yeah, they flip a coin.
Jekyll and Hyde.
There are two goalkeepers. One always tells the truth. The other one always lies.
It's like the real one isn't there in training, but if Ten Hag gets mad at him at any point, he's like, I'm over the edge. And then they switch at like before the game.
Yeah.
Schrodinger's Onana. That's like, this is so unrelated, but okay, here's a trivia question for you, and none of you are going to know the answer, but the pair of brothers with the highest points in NHL history is the Gretzky brothers, because Wayne Gretzky has like 2,800 NHL points, and Brent Gretzky has 3 NHL points.
I thought it was going to
him
be
and
like
Onana.
I thought it was going to be like
carrying-
the Sedin twins
Yeah.
or like not that.
Nope, it's the
That's
Gretzky
hilarious.
brothers, because his brother did play in the NHL. So
I think the Hughes brothers are coming for it.
no, dude, Gretzky has more like points in the NHL than you have farts in a lifetime, and that's saying something.
I don't know about that. That I would go.
I would be
think-
concerned if you had even close to the amount of farts that he has points.
Okay. Okay, let's.
We're not doing this. We're not doing
No,
this.
we're not.
Moving on.
How many times do you think you've farted since you were born, Josh?
Over 2,857.
No way. There's no way.
Hold on.
That's
I'm
just an
22.
absurd amount of farts for my brain to process. Right
Okay.
now.
Do you think you farted every day? You've been alive.
No, I don't think so.
What? Okay, no, that's a crazy.
Every
that's crazy.
day?
I've
Okay,
for sure
wait, wait,
farted
wait,
every
wait,
day.
wait.
You're on my side, surely.
I'm not.
Every day you fart?
Okay.
You kind of do that
you
when you
think-
poop.
That's pooping. though.
Ooh.
But dude,
Okay.
dude,
If I'm
Okay,
sitting
wait.
down to poop, I don't count it. Should I
Wait,
count it?
No poops. Do you think you have farted every other day in your life?
Every other day? Probably.
You technically have to say
Okay.
yes because you make
Pause,
a
pause,
fart
pause,
noise
pause.
every day.
If we go with the youngest person, I'm 22.
See, that's
300
once.
365 days for 22 years. That's 8,030 farts.
Okay.
You just admitted that you farted 4,015 times.
Okay, fine.
United and manure.
we just did the math on Josh's farts versus Wayne Gretzky's NHL points. Okay,
What a tie-in.
so
The Hughes
one
brothers have to get 900 each. That's achievable.
for 2 of them, it is. Luke's not going to get 900.
That's like as
Anyway.
many farts as you have in 2 days, Josh.
I know. It's wild.
Or the amount he just had right now.
The bronchitis is back. I'm gonna have to edit that out. That was horrible.
I think Luke Hughes could do it. I think he's getting.
Why are we still talking about this?
I'm just. It's his rookie year.
We got to move on from hockey.
Chelsea won 3-2 at Brighton in spite of having a red card from Conor Gallagher. And they should have had another one because Moises Caicedo should have had about 30 yellow cards during the game. Continuous fouling, continuous bad behavior. Bad behavior.
Enzo finally did good.
Yeah, Enzo.
Kind of.
It's like London buses. I mean, they scored 3 goals, but they're all from set pieces and they're all ugly except for the penalty. So I mean, I know there
was that curse where like he only had like a few wins being in the squad or something like that.
Yeah, like 2 or 3, something like that.
Yeah.
Sure,
Um,
more, but
I really just wanted to mention this because I think we've had another refereeing disaster in terms
Oh
of
my
the
God.
fact that what?
I know which one you're talking about.
Which one?
The penalty at the end, or the non-penalty, I guess.
Yeah.
That's the one I was talking about.
Yeah.
whatever was happening. I don't even know.
Not to mention the fact that the one that Enzo Fernandez was given should not have even been a penalty, in my opinion. It's just
When
another one of
Mudryk
those.
went down,
Yeah.
I'd have to watch it again. When I first
For
watched
me-
it, I didn't have an issue with it, but
For me, it was just him and Milner going shoulder to shoulder. But I mean, maybe revisionist history. Anyway, someone else talk about the one at the end because that's not what I was talking about.
Oh, okay.
I don't even know what happened. Like the referee, so they call. There's a VAR check for handball. The check clearly shows that it hits the defender in the face. Does not hit his hand. His hand is up, hits him in the face. They tell him to go look at the monitor. Now, this is the clearest non-handball of all time, but they say you need to go look at the monitor. The referee goes and looks at the monitor, and he blows for a penalty. And then when he walks over, he's giving a drop ball. And everyone's like, what is happening? You just gave a penalty. So I don't know what happened. I also don't know why it was a drop ball, because if it hit him in the face and went out, it would have been a corner. And so just everyone was confused and no one knew what was happening.
Right. And it's the fact that, obviously they got the penalty decision right, but that's an opportunity that Brighton could have had to, possibly get on the board again and tie it. So it's just like they can't even do the basic of refereeing.
That is the worst part by far. It's like you did a good thing and then you went and just like shoved the kid down a hill. Like you did so well and then did something so stupid.
Right. And does a corner obviously, get them a goal automatically? No, but still, you shouldn't be messing up these small things.
And it's to the point of over officiating the game. Just tell him, just get in his ear and say it's not a penalty. We think it's gone out for a corner. It's gone off his dome. It's a corner. And then the ref gives a corner. He doesn't have to go look at the monitor. We don't have to do this whole song and dance. Yeah.
The thing is that I think he gave a corner originally until they did the VAR check. So he reversed it for a drop ball for some reason. I don't know the drop ball rules. Maybe it was real, but I don't know.
Then as he's like going over there, the Brighton player's like taking it to the corner and then just like kicks it at him because he says, give me the ball. And then it's just like mass chaos ensues again. Both managers look like they don't know what's going on, which if the manager doesn't know what's going on, it's also a very bad day.
So from one relatively insane result to another, and then to another after this one, we'll move on and briefly touch on probably the game of the weekend from an entertainment standpoint, being Liverpool-Fulham with a 4-3 win for Liverpool in the end. Couple of absolute banger goals in this one as well. I don't know which one you like better, the McAllister one or the Endo one, but
if football was food, we ate good that game.
Yes, we did. And that was both of their first goals for Liverpool too, which is an insane kind of thing to bring up. And then all of Fulham's goals were unfortunately not quite so aesthetic, but they all count the same. I think Liverpool are legitimate title contenders. I think there is a serious case to be made that they may win the title this season. And I think part of that goes into the fact that they're finding ways to win. Their midfield composition is slightly starting to slide into place. City look like they maybe are a little bit off from what they usually are. Of course, Arsenal are probably going to be favored ahead of Liverpool, but I don't know. I mean, I think games like this go to show that Liverpool are in the mix for the title for me, for sure.
Because they would have easily lost this had this been the past 2 seasons. 100%. I think without the shadow of a doubt, they were not the same team from when they won the title, and they are showing signs of just like the grit that they had when they did win the title.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote down in my notes, if they go on to keep this competitive all the way to the end, this will be a game they look back at because it really is it's a huge confidence boost. And it was a must-win game too. Obviously, this was before the Spurs and City game, but presumably you're counting on somebody dropping points. Obviously, Tottenham have a great record at the Etihad. So it really is must win because, you have the potential of passing City if things go your way. And in this kind of game, it's just one of those where you have to win at all costs and you have to find a way to win at all costs. And they do.
They also have the last month of the season is not terribly difficult. They have West Ham, Tottenham, Villa, Wolves. So like they have some tough games in there, but not as bad as it could be. And I think when you look at title contenders, those last 4 to 6 games, I think are extremely important.
Now, what I will say, I think the biggest thing I learned from last year's title push with Saliba getting injured and City's continued investment in the defense is that defense really does win championships. It's kind of that old adage. And I think Liverpool's defense is their weakest aspect right now. Ethan kind of touched on it in the Euro preview, but Van Dijk is not really playing up to his normal self. I think having that inverted side of Trent is great because he's never been that great defensively, but it does make him worse. I mean, you take a look at the first goal, it came from Trent's side, which he wasn't actually even on in the replay because he was out of position because he had inverted. So there's some issues there, and they have leaked goals a bit this season, but it is true though, if you outscore your opponents, it doesn't matter how many you concede. So
well, and they do have this apparent injury crisis that's kind of just spawned up out of nowhere. I think one of the most notable absentees for me in this game was Alisson Becker, who I think multiple of those Fulham goals don't go in if Alisson's in the net. Not to say Kelleher's a bad player, but I don't love really any of the Fulham goals. I think Alisson probably saves at least 2 of them for me. So I think that's something to consider as well. I think Joel Matip wasn't he removed from an injury or with an injury from the game. So concerning stuff at the back for Liverpool, all things considered. I don't like Tsimikas. I think Robertson is leagues and leagues ahead of him, even at his current downturn state. I know. Yeah, I don't buy Tsimikas. So any final thoughts on Liverpool or Fulham for that matter?
I did have a standout player for Fulham, and that's Anthony Robinson. He is just such an athlete. Like, he might be the most athletic person I've ever seen. Like, he is just unbelievable, running all over the pitch.
He's
and
huge
it's always
too. He's just like
he's large, and it's always at full speed as well. Like, he just has unending energy.
It does make you like that old like American adage of like, if our best athletes actually played soccer, how good our national team would be. Because like he is like one of those, like probably like one of the better athletes in the like men's national team, just from like an athletic perspective. If we had like our best players playing soccer, how good we would be.
Imagine him delivering crosses to Shaq.
Or just like, I think the funniest one is LeBron. Because like, imagine if LeBron was a striker in the men's national team, just like 6'8", he'd probably be what, like 220 as a soccer player, which is still insane.
A diving header from Goofy to win the World Cup for the United States.
Ethan, I interrupted you. You go ahead.
No, you're good. I was sitting there and trying to think about what Fulham are. Obviously they get good results and they've got a lot of standout players, but I have no idea how they play, stuff like that. It might be, the fact that when Palace played them back in, I guess it was September, whenever we played them, I can't remember anything from that game. So, you used to be able to just say that you chuck it up to Mitra every time, but it's hard to figure out what their plan is going forward.
I will say Marco Silva in all of his batches with being a manager in the Prem has done a very good job of adapting to who they played. Like when he was at Wolves, especially. Am I thinking? No. Yes. Yeah. Or no. Watford.
Because I don't think Marco Silva was at Wolves, dude.
There's the Portuguese connection that made me think it. Like even when he was at Watford, like they did a very good job of adapting who they were playing and got some decent results when they probably shouldn't have with how bad that Watford was, how bad that Watford team was at times.
Yeah. He's for sure a good manager. It's just it's hard to figure out these days. Like I can sit and watch highlights and still be confused, but it works sometimes, so can't fault that.
For me, it always seems like he's something of a one season wonder. Like he'll have one really, really good season in the Premier League, and then it starts to peter out after that. I mean, you go all the way back to when he first was in the Prem with Hull, and he kept them up for one season, and everyone was like, "This is incredible! This is the greatest manager we've ever seen." And then they got dummied the next season and relegated like with force. Took him to an FA Cup final, I think, against Arsenal that season too, and then came back. I can't remember if he was at Everton or Watford first. I think he was at Watford. Did all right with them for a season, got relegated. Goes to Everton, does all right with them for a little while. They decide they don't want him anymore. Same thing with Fulham here. Does great with them for a season when they're newly promoted. Now starting to peter out a bit. Is he going to be there by the end of the season? Who knows? So interesting one to keep an eye on for sure. Now let's move along to probably the other blockbuster of the week, which is always a blockbuster for some reason. I don't know what it is about this fixture. I don't know what it is about these two teams that just every time they play, something insane happens. And that is Spurs versus City.
We skipped Palace if you want to do that one first.
We certainly did skip
and
Palace.
save Spurs City for last.
we did skip Palace. Sorry, I wrote down on my notes and did not write Palace down, unfortunately.
Well, it was a crappy game anyway, so that's probably why.
Sorry.
No, you're good. I mean, out of all the games that happened on Sunday, that was definitely the worst. From the scoreline alone, but just from you actually watching it. So I got stuck with that crap. But this is just another typical Roy is dealing with a lot of injuries, and so he's just going to grind out a draw, take them as they come. But it's still so annoying to watch this happen because we've got so many good tools that we have or at our disposal, but he's just not willing to use them. Like I took a few screenshots of tweets that I've seen over time from where I get a lot of the news. So before this game, he said that França and Ahamada are works in progress. I'm like, okay, I can get that. They're young players, still needs time to develop. I get that. And then you go to this one that says, this doesn't include Ahamada, but out of Dean Henderson, Rob Holding, and França, they cost a collective £40 million and only have combined for 31 minutes of Premier League football this season. So why are we spending 40 million on players we're not even going to use / didn't even need in the first place? It beats me. And, when watching this game, I'm sitting here thinking he can't, França, might take some time to gel, to develop more. He's not an academy player. He needs to be getting minutes. He's only come on a few times this season. He's been playing a lot of academy games. We've spent $20 million on this man. He needs to be playing these games because, we were able to get a goal immediately midway through the game through Edouard, but we were lacking a lot of the pace and urgency to kind of get something from this game, which is annoying because it's like West Ham were kind of throwing everything forward. We definitely could have had a pacey player on the wing or in the midfield to kind of catch them off and win like we did last time at the London Stadium last season. So it's really unfortunate to kind of see us lie over and, not try our best. And we started kicking the ball around in the corner around the 80th minute. Like Ayew was just keeping it in the corner. And I was like, man, we're doing this against West Ham with 10 minutes to go, not even including the amount of stoppage time we had. So yeah, it's just very frustrating. The last tweet, and I kind of sympathize with it, is that someone mentioned that Roy is kind of damaging the long-term future of this club because he's not even providing any short-term positives with, not even going to be here for that long. So it's like, why is he here? Why can't we just focus on someone new? And it's like, yeah, I'm worried because our December is going to be really tough, but, I guess we're kind of just vibing at the moment.
I would have even liked to have seen França at Cam because Chris Richards at CDM, interesting experiment. I actually liked him there, but the thing is, he's strong defensively, but he offers nothing in transition because he's a center back. So when you have that, your outlet ball cannot be Will Hughes. Like that's just not an option.
And the funny thing about it is that Chris Richards wasn't even planned to start. He even mentioned that Jeff Schlupp had a family thing come up last minute. So Schlupp was going to play in the midfield this week. Uh, and I've come to find out, having seen Hughes play both 10 and into 6 role, that he can't do either of them. He has to play in the 8 role whenever Lerma can't play, because he can't do either a 6 or a 10. So that was another thing that got caught out. And I think Will giving the ball away, playing as a 10 this game, definitely saw Kudu score, who's a danger man. He's going to be great for West Ham going forward. But my last point was, I was, a lot of people, including myself, I've been on the Edouard train for so long. It's like he scores, but just every game he plays, it looks very unconvincing of him scoring. But he scored again, so it's a very, very weird instance where he's just going to score, even though he might look really bad at the moment. So hopefully we can get some more people like him who actually play well. So anyway, that's
I had a question about the defense.
Okay.
Because
Yep.
normally I am very positive about y'all's defense. But y'all were getting a little bit exposed with over the top balls specifically, and it wasn't just Joel Ward, which is he's normally the scapegoat for obvious reasons. He's old and slow. It wasn't just him. What's going on? Because the Citadel pairing didn't change.
Right.
And I feel like this wasn't always an issue.
Yeah, and I think this kind of ties in with just how West Ham are. I think they've always been a physical team. They've always got tall players like Socek. They've added Edson Alvarez into the team, and then their back two are powerful like that. But even then, it's we're starting to see some cracks. I mean, I could even say it in the Everton and the Luton game that we should have gotten points, but we ended up losing pretty bad. But our defense was just looking terrible in both of those. So it feels like the club is not at a good spot right now. And it feels like we're lacking confidence. We're lacking the good energy to go out and win these games. So it's frustrating feeling at the moment. And, if it's like one of those situations where like, if you feel like nothing is going to happen and nothing's going to change. So it's just kind of like literally when Edouard scored, I was like that's all I gave, because I was just like, I'm so done right now. But yeah, the defense is cracking, and it's like our one good thing is cracking right now. So yeah, hopefully can start turning things around. Anyway, now Spurs.
Now
City.
Now I'll talk about Spurs. I got excited. I got wound up.
No, you're good. It was a good game.
The bald fraud.
Before you said anything, I was literally like doing stuff around the house, like nailing paintings and whatnot, and when the last thing in the game happened, I almost fucking fell off the ladder because it was so insane. So that's how crazy this game was.
Yeah, this game was nuts. I was still feeling pretty piddly under the weather at the time that this happened. So I was like laying on my couch whenever Kulusevski scored the last minute winner, and I was like, yeah. But so unfortunately not any. Sorry. It feels
basically
like
a winner.
It feels like a win. So no naked scenes from me in the apartment at this time, but yeah, I don't know what it is about these teams, this game, Pep Guardiola, that he just cannot beat Spurs. I don't know why. It's just hilarious to me that the greatest manager of the greatest team in the world right now, for some reason, cannot get over a Tottenham-shaped hump. I don't know what it is, but it kills me every time. Son scores every single game. Kulusevski has scored every time he's ever played at the Etihad. Lo Celso has 3 goals in the Premier League, and 2 of them are against Man City. So it's just some unknown force wants us to exude justice on Man City, and it feels good. I kind of felt like getting a draw out of this game when we definitely did not deserve one was some kind of justice, because I think we did deserve a draw, at least against Aston Villa. Probably a win, because we played really well against Villa, and we just couldn't take our chances, and Villa could take theirs. And that's pretty much exactly what happened in this game. Like, City played well, not great, I will say, but they played well, and we managed and took our chances when they came, and City didn't. It was a rare off day for Haaland, that fraud, who was also
he's been struggling.
He was at fault for the Lo Celso goal too, because he let Ben Davis beat him in the air. And then, yeah, anyway, threw a fit at the end of the game, which we'll get onto in a little bit. But I just want to say how much I think I might be in love with Ange Postecoglou, because think about this. Every manager in the world is going to come to a game where they've lost 3 in a row against Man City away, with treble winners, Champions League winners, 3-time Premier League winners on the bounce, and park the bus and say, we're going to put 11 people behind the ball, try to defend and escape with something. And Postecoglou has decided that he's just going to say, fuck that. I'm going to do exactly what I want to do all the time. And he's come out to do it. And we have somehow gotten away with a point with Emerson Royale and Ben Davis starting at center back against Manchester City, who are just a bunch of massive guys. That seems to be their game plan these days, is they're just a bunch of large dudes who pass the ball around, win aerial duels, and have extreme possession. So the only thing unique that I noticed that we did in this game compared to last was our defensive structure was more definitely a 4-2-3-1 versus a 4-3-3, which it usually is. I think we really only pressed with 1 forward rather than 2 or 3. Son was really the only one exercising that role. Kulusevski kind of took on a position that we haven't seen so much this season in terms of a traditional 10. He was taking up space in the middle of the field in attacking areas, so much so that it actually kind of vacated the midfield a little bit. Like, we had so many players forward at times that City was able to just waltz kind of right through the midfield. And then I think we saw that change when Brian Hill came off for Højbjerg, and it kind of straightened things out a little bit at halftime. Spurs, I don't know how much you can read into this game because we're completely injury ravaged. The team practically picked itself for this game. So I don't know how much you can read into it. What I do know is that we have players who can step up now. I think Lo Celso, I feel good about him stepping up. I wouldn't necessarily feel good about him being the designated starter every week, but I feel good about him being able to step up and play when he needs to play. Or, next season, if we were in Europe, I would be happy with him to be one of the starters in Europe, be that the Champions League, the Europa League, the Mickey Mouse League, whatever it is. And I think we get Romero back after this week, which is a huge boost. And Richarlison came back as well, so he'll be back in the mix. We're slowly starting to trickle players back into the team after our annihilation against Chelsea. We the only problem is we now have 6 games in 25 days to close out the remainder of December, which is an unfortunate purview for the future. I don't 100% know how we're going to get through it without more injuries, because we do not have a large enough squad to take on that number of games. So, yeah, very exciting. Never quit spirit. I've been on Kulusevski's case the last couple of weeks, but I think he really impressed me this weekend. Not only for the last minute winner, but just for his work ethic. And when he's in midfield, I feel like he damages the break less. I feel like my biggest complaint with him is that he stops the break because he's slow and kind of lacks explosiveness. And I think putting him in the middle kind of solves that problem a little bit. So I'm enjoying seeing that. I think I didn't hate him out wide either. Obviously, the goal came from that. So when he went back out wide, I liked his game from then on. Another bizarre piece of things from the officials where it's the last minute and Haaland is fouled and brought down, and the ball gets played through to Grealish, who's mostly all the way through, and the referee for some reason decides to bring it back for a free kick for Man City. And Haaland, of course, losing his mind, Pep losing his mind, everyone losing their mind. I don't understand how this kind of thing happens. I think Josh brought it up earlier, or maybe someone else did, that they're just getting the fundamental things wrong at this point. Like, we've lost the marginal decisions and we're now getting on to the fundamentals of refereeing have abandoned us, which is crazy. So
I saw a
Who's to
tweet that
say?
said the referee saw Holland play a through ball and just assumed that they lost possession.
Yeah, and the thing is, it wasn't. It was like not guaranteed that Grealish was going to be through either, because the ball was kind of arcing back towards Ben Davis, and you would hope that even if that ball gets through, Davis just tackles him and takes the red card or some such. But you never know. So what I would say to Holland for throwing a fit and becoming a meme and crying and shitting is that you should have scored the open net that you had, and not complained about the referee. You should have taken all the chances that you had to win the game.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
cry
Pep kind
more.
of said that afterwards too. They asked him about it, and he had his complaints, but then at the end of it, he said, "That's not the reason we didn't win."
Yeah,
Which, I mean, he didn't come out and say it, but it's pretty obvious what he was thinking, considering just how many chances City had. I mean, you mentioned it; they just could not finish. They have Tottenhamitis. They're allergic to scoring when they play against y'all.
we're in their head. We have to be.
Literally, I mean, Holland missed a sitter. Someone else missed a sitter. Holland hit the post. Someone else hit the post.
Doku and Alvarez both hit the post as well.
They had
So-
a couple very, millimeter off type of things where they should be.
Vicario made that
target.
incredible save in the beginning of the first half. So
Yeah, and I mean, y'all had quite a few turnovers, like either in your box or right outside as well.
It's
City
the
just
most-
did not capitalize.
it's the most time City has ever regained possession in the attacking third in a Premier League game in history, and somehow they didn't capitalize on almost any of them. So
Yeah, I mean, I love to see it. It's great. I love seeing City.
in
I
the
feel like
mud.
they don't. I feel like they don't ever get decisions that go against them. With this refereeing one, and I'm not saying I'm glad the referees messed up, but it is kind of like a karma type of thing, right?
Yeah, well,
Welcome to the club.
Our karma didn't come back in the form of refereeing decisions. Our karma came back in the fact that our entire team immediately got injured in one game.
Yeah.
We paid our penance for the refereeing decisions with the fact that our team
Yeah.
is now injured, and I mean the entire team. So yeah, I don't have too much else to say. I think just a really exciting game all around. Good time to be Spurs, I think, in spite of the fact that we've lost 3 of our last 4. It's extenuating circumstances. It's really frustrating because you think what would be happening right now if all those stupid injuries and suspensions hadn't happened. Like, where would we be at right now? It's really frustrating from that aspect. But the fact that we've been doing as well as we have with no recognized center backs, sometimes no recognized defensive midfielders, just random NPCs like Giovanni Lo Celso and Brian Hill starting games in 2023, almost 2024, and we're still doing as well as we are. So I think I'm happy with where Spurs are at right now. So someone else who I would imagine is happy with where his team are at right now would be Josh, because Leicester have picked up a myriad of good results in recent weeks and have now, thanks to a late winner from Harry Winks, by the way, taken their position at the top of the championship through and through.
We've had an okay run of form. I wouldn't say it's been great. It could be going significantly better. Like, we lost to Leeds, which is okay, but we also dominated them last season multiple times. Then we lost to Borough the week after to like a 83rd minute, and then we drew Sheffield, which was a 93rd minute. So like very annoying, like little things that like that's if we win one of those games we lost, that's 3 more points. If we don't give up a 93rd minute equalizer, that's 3 points. So like we should have 4 more points. We should have 50 right now if we didn't make really, 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 really silly mistakes in the last 15 minutes of the game. But because all those goals that like led the losses were mistake driven, they weren't just us being outplayed, which is kind of comes with the territory of having a mixture of a very new team and a very young team. But love Harry Winks getting the 94th minute winner. The only reason it was a winner because Josh Maja scored the equalizer, which if you've watched the Sunderland documentary was a very like hovered mainstay. So like that was kind of cool to see him score that. I am very much looking forward to our Ipswich game on Boxing Day. That's going to be absolutely insane. I'm so excited. We're 1 point ahead of them right now. We are 8 points ahead of third, which is Leeds, and then we are 18 points above seventh. So I am comfortable saying we will at least be in the playoffs, and I am fairly confident we will at least be in the top two. I just really, really, really would prefer to win the whole thing, versus just getting promoted. But I'm liking where we're at right now. But we play Plymouth this weekend, which I think will be a cool game. Is Plymouth, like, I think it's the first time we played Plymouth. I don't know about ever, but at least in recent memory, it's one of the first times we played them.
And by the way, y'all play Ipswich again on January 20th. So 2 quickfire fixtures against them in less than a month.
Those will more than likely be the deciding matches for the championship.
Excellent stuff. Josh, let's stick with you and go to Jersey of the Week as we wrap things up.
I do not have one this week. It was kind of a crazy day. Olivia wasn't feeling great, so I was the one cooking dinner tonight. So I did not have terribly large amount of time to go get one. So I do not have one. So enjoy this Japanese Pokemon card from Ben Mendoza, friend of the show.
We'll go to Ethan for album of the week.
I'll step up for that. I found this Texas Rangers old throwback jersey that my dad had.
World Series champions.
Right. That we have not mentioned yet, but yeah, first one. So yeah, first of many. But yeah, I found that in my dad's closet and he doesn't wear it, so I took it. But yeah. So if you are on the internet at any point, you would know that Spotify Wrapped / Apple Replay, if you use that shit, just happens, and you basically just get to see what all you've listened to this year. And I've already picked this album many times, but this was my top artist, so I thought it was only fair to bring them up again. But Oasis, What's the Story, Morning Glory. It was an album I first got into at the beginning or at the end of last year, and so I spent the whole year with it, and they ended up being my favorite band that I've listened to this year. And I think as of maybe summer-ish, it became my favorite album of all time. So it's cool that I got to spend the whole year with it for the first time.
I wondered if you were going to bring a Strokes album to blast me up for having the Strokes on my Spotify Wrapped every single year.
I could go grab the new Abnormal right now and hang it up on my new record holder up there. So I'll try and change that up, make it cool. But yeah, the Strokes, ladies and gentlemen.
The Strokes! I went and checked. So this is year number 6 for the Strokes to be in my top 6 or top 5. And then year number 4 for Thank You Scientist to be in my top 5. So in a row. So I'm just a nonstop stroker and Thank You Scientister. So take of that what you will. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. We better get out of here. I'm going to say goodbye to all the fellas, and a huge thanks for joining us, Reese.
Yep, thank you for hosting once again.
Ethan, I'm sorry I forgot Palace in the running order, but
I'm trying to
glad to have you on.
Palace is what I'm trying to do. But no, it was a good podcast. I'm glad we're back in the swing of things.
And Josh, of course, we're very glad to have you back on the show. Sorry it took so long to get you back reintegrated.
I'm glad to be back. It's been a very long hiatus, but I'm glad I'm back and kind of in the rhythm of things. Still a little crazy around here.
And a big thanks to you, the listener, for coming back and getting with us again after our long break. We do apologize for that. We're going to try to be better. We always say that. We're going to be uploading as many episodes as we possibly can throughout the holiday period. Of course, it is a busy time, and you never know what's going to happen. People are in different places, different states, different locations, different states of mind. So you never know. But we thanks for tuning in. We thank you for tuning in all the same. So we hope you enjoyed the Premier League this weekend. We hope you're staying safe, staying healthy, and it's a goodbye from us.